Hi everyone, good morning. I am Riza Luis A. Coyos, a BSED Math student. Now, I will be discussing the key features of the Malolos Constitution. So, there are four key features of the Malolos Constitution. The Title 4, Natural Rights and Popular Sovereignty. Title 3, Article 5, Freedom of Belief, Separation of Church and State. Title 2, Popular, Representative, and Responsible Government and Powers, Legislative, Executive, and Judicial. So now we will be discussing first the Title 4, Natural Rights and Popular Sovereignty. So what is natural rights and popular sovereignty? So natural rights are fundamental freedoms and entitlements that every person possesses by virtue of being human, regardless of government recognition. In the context of the Malolos Constitution, natural rights are enumerated in Title 4, which served as the Bill of Rights for the first Philippine Republic. So there are key examples of natural rights in the Malolos Constitution. The first one is right to life, liberty, and property. So there is no citizen could be deprived of this without due process of law, ensuring state power is limited by individual rights. Next is due process and equal protection. The Constitution guaranteed fair procedures and hearings for any deprivation of liberty or property and equal protection under the law. Next is freedom of religion. All citizens were guaranteed the free exercise of religion and the separation of church and state. Next is freedom of speech and of the press. So it means that the Constitution protected the right to express ideas and opinions both orally and in writing, and safeguarded freedom of the press. Next is freedom of assembly and association. It means that the citizens could freely assemble and form associations for lawful purposes. Next is protection against arbitrary arrest and detention. It means that the Constitution required that arrests and detentions be based on valid legal grounds and mandated that detained individuals be presented to a judicial authority promptly. The next one is inviolability of domicile and correspondence. It means the privacy of homes and communication was protected from unreasonable searches and seizures. And the last one is prohibition of ex post facto laws, which means laws could not retroactively criminalize acts that were legal when committed. On the other hand, the Malolos Constitution explicitly declared that sovereignty resides exclusively in the people, meaning all governmental power is derived from the consent of the governed. The Constitution established a system in which government officials are accountable to the people who retain the right to delegate and withdraw governmental powers as they see fit. So if a person's rights are violated, Title 4 ensures that there are legal remedies and that government officials can be held accountable. This demonstrates how the Malolos Constitution enshrined both natural rights and the principle that sovereignty resides in the people. So the next is the Title 3, Article 5, which means freedom of belief, separation of church and state. Title 3, Article 5 of the Malolos Constitution states that The state recognizes the freedom and equality of all beliefs, as well as the separation of church and state. So, with the freedom of belief, so it means the Malolos Constitution guarantees that every individual has the right to freely practice their religion or belief without discrimination or preference. This means all religions are treated equally under the law, and individuals can worship according to their conscience or according to their wants. And next is the separation of church and state. So the Constitution established a clear boundary between religious institutions and the government. So it means that these principles prevents the state from establishing an official religion or favoring one religion over others, ensuring that government affairs remain secular and impartial with respect to religion. So this provision was one of the earliest formal declarations of religious freedom and church-state separation in the Philippines, reflecting progressive ideals following Spanish colonial rule. It aligned with international principles of human rights and religious liberty, influenced by documents like the Treaty of Paris on 1898 and later constitutional developments. The principle has continued to evolve in Philippines jurisprudence, where courts apply a benevolent neutrality accommodation approach, which balancing respect for religious freedom with government interests, requiring laws that burden religious exercise to pass strict scrutiny. So in conclusion, the Title 3, Article 5 of the Malolos Constitution enshrines the fundamental right to religious freedom and mandates that the government remain neutral and separate from religious institutions, laying the groundwork for modern Philippine constitutional protections on religion. So now I will be discussing the third one. So the next is Title 2, Popular, Representative, and Responsible Government. So Title 2, Article 4 of the Malolos Constitution defines the nature and structure of the government of the Philippine Republic. So the key features of Title 2, Article 4 are popular. So the first, we will be discussing first the popular government. So it means that sovereignty resides in the people, meaning the government derives its authority from the consent of the governed. Next is representative government. It means that the government is composed of representatives elected by the people to legislate and govern on their behalf. Next is alternative government, which means the government exercises three distinct powers: legislative, executive, and judicial, that are separate and independent from each other. So the last one is responsible government. The executive branch is accountable to the legislative branch, reflecting a parliamentary system where the executive must maintain the confidence of the legislature to govern. So now is separation of powers. So the Constitution clearly separates the three branches of government. So there are three branches of the government. So the legislative power, executive power, and the judicial power. So we will be discussing it more deeper in the next slide. So the National Assembly has the right to censure the executive and questions its members through interpellation or the question periods. The President and his secretaries are collectively and individually responsible to the Assembly for their policies and actions. And under a permanent commission elected from Assembly members acts when the Assembly is in recess, handling urgent matters but cannot pass laws. So the election and term of the President. The President is elected by an absolute majority of votes from the Assembly and special representatives. The term of office is 4 years with the possibility of re-election. So, this was designed to promote democratic governance, prevent concentration of power, and ensure that government officials remain answerable to the people through their representative. So now, the last one is power: legislative, executive, and judicial. So legislative power, it means they are making laws. So this power belongs to a group called the Assembly. The Assembly is made up of people chosen by the citizens to create and pass laws that everyone must follow. So that's the second is executive power. They are carrying out laws. So this power belongs to the President. So the President makes sure that the laws made by the Assembly are put into action, and also the President leads the government and works with helpers called secretaries. And the President is chosen by the Assembly and serves for 4 years. And the third is judicial power, which means they will decide if laws are fair. So this power belongs to the courts, especially in the Supreme Court. The courts make sure laws are followed correctly and settle disputes. They also protect people's rights by making sure laws are fair. Now I will continue to discuss the legislative power and the executive power. So, what is the legislative power? Legislative power means the power to make laws for the country. So who has this power to make laws for the country? So it is given to Assembly of Representatives. This means that there is only one group, not two chambers like in some countries, that makes the laws. So the elected representatives, the members of the assemblies, are elected by the people to serve for 4 years. So the meeting schedules is the assembly meets every year for at least 3 months to discuss and pass the laws. And the duty of secretaries in the assembly is the government secretaries, like cabinet members, also sit in the assembly. So this means they take part in discussion but usually don't vote. So both the president and any assembly member can propose new laws called bills. And the non-legislative powers, besides making laws, that the assembly can also censure or officially criticize government officials and impeach important officials like the president, cabinet members, the chief justice of the Supreme Court, and the solicitor general if they do something wrong. So now we will be discussing the executive power vested in the president. So elected by a constituent assembly, no re-election, no vice president, new president selected by the assembly in case of vacancy. So it means, so executive power means the authority to carry out and enforce the law made by the assembly and to run the government. So the president holds the executive power, so they have the power to carry out and enforce the law made by the assembly. So the president chosen as elected by constituent assembly as a special group made up of representative. So the president cannot be re-elected after serving one term. This means they can only serve one term, and there is no president position. If the president dies, resigns, or can no longer serve, the assembly selects a new president to take over. Outcome: never fully enforced due to U.S. occupation after Treaty of Paris on 1898. So the Malolos Constitution was made to start the first independent Philippine government, but it was never fully used because after Spain gave the Philippines to the United States in the Treaty of Paris on 1898, and the Americans took control of the country. So the U.S. did not accept the Philippine government and fought against Filipino leaders in the Philippine-American War. So because of this, the Americans stopped the new government from working and set up their own rules and leaders. So even though the Malolos Constitution was important and showed the Filipinos' desire for freedom, it couldn't really work because the U.S. took over the Philippines after the Treaty in Paris.